In the heart of a small bustling town where neon signs glowed at night and tired workers came in and out of cheap diners for a moment of warmth, there lived a young woman named Clara, a waitress barely in her 20s who worked endless shifts in a little corner diner not because she loved serving coffee and washing dishes, but because life had forced her to shoulder responsibilities bigger than her fragile shoulders could bear. Her mother was sick, her younger brother still in school, and bills piled up like mountains that never seemed to shrink no matter how much she worked, yet Clara carried her burden with quiet dignity, offering smiles to strangers though her heart often trembled with worry, and one particularly cold winter morning as frost still clung to the windows and the bell over the diner's door jingled, a man rolled himself in, a man whose eyes were weary and whose clothes were torn, sitting in a battered wheelchair that squeaked with every move, his beard unkempt, his face scarred by life's cruelty, and his very presence seemed to make the diners go quiet for a moment before they returned to their meals, whispering under their breaths. But Clara didn't turn her head away like others did. Instead she walked toward him with a smile that felt like a ray of sunlight breaking through heavy clouds, asking softly, "Sir, would you like something warm to eat?" And though his eyes lowered in shame, mumbling that he had no money, Clara shook her head gently and said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it," then hurried to the kitchen, ignoring the disapproving glance of her manager who had warned her countless times not to give away food for free, and moments later she placed before him a steaming bowl of soup, bread on the side, and hot coffee that warmed his trembling hands, and as he tasted the first spoonful, tears welled in his eyes, tears not just for the soup but for the kindness he had been denied by the world for so long, and so began an unspoken ritual that carried on day after day, for every afternoon when her shift began, Clara would quietly set aside a portion of her tips and pay for his meal herself, slipping the money into the register so the manager wouldn't notice, and each time he came in she would greet him with the same warm smile, and though he rarely spoke more than a few words, his eyes softened, his shoulders loosened. And for a brief while in that diner, he felt human again, and the other customers began to notice, some scoffing at Clara's foolishness, saying she was wasting her kindness on a crippled beggar who could give nothing in return, while others admired her silent courage but said nothing. Yet Clara remained steadfast, for to her it wasn't about money or return but about being the one person who did not turn away. And slowly the men began to talk, telling her bits and pieces about a life once filled with dreams, about battles fought and lost, about mistakes that cost him dearly, and though Clara never pressed for details, she listened with a heart wide open, offering words of encouragement and laughter that reminded him of a world beyond pain. And one stormy night when the streets were nearly empty and rain battered the diner windows, Clara found him soaked and shivering, his wheelchair nearly stuck in the mud outside, and without hesitation she ran out, pulled him inside with all her strength, wrapped him in a blanket, and whispered, "As long as I'm here, you'll never go hungry," words that seared into his soul like fire, because in that moment he realized she wasn't just feeding his body but mending a spirit broken by rejection, and as the weeks stretched into months, their bond deepened, not as lovers, not as savior and saved, but as two souls carrying burdens in silence who found comfort in each other's presence. And what Clara never guessed was that beneath the ragged clothes and broken wheelchair sat a man whose past held secrets that could change her life forever, a man who watched her kindness not as a beggar desperate for survival but as someone searching for proof that genuine compassion still existed in a world obsessed with wealth, a man who one day would look into her eyes and reveal a truth that would leave the entire diner in shock and Clara's world spinning. But until that day came, she continued her quiet mission, feeding him daily, giving pieces of her heart away without expecting anything in return, and unknowingly writing the first chapter of a story that would soon become legendary.